Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast where your voice matters most. Hosted by Hall of Fame sportscaster Jim Powell. This is the show that puts fans at the heart of the conversation. Whether you're cheering in the stands, screaming at the TV, or debating with friends about the latest trades, Fans First is here to amplify your thoughts, your insights, and your love for the game.
Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast. It's great to have you with us today. My name is Jim Powell. I'm your host, along with our co-host, Tyler Flowers, a longtime big leaguer. And you are in for a major treat today. We have one of the greatest pitchers in the history of baseball with us right here on Fans First. He's a hard-throwing left-hander, no BS, no messing around, all business. Billy Wagner has joined us today. Billy, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Hey, well, Jim, it's good to be back. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Your luck ran out, I guess.
I guess.
You had a good run going there. I don't know if Tyler Flowers is our co-host, Billy. I'm not sure if you guys have ever met before or have your paths ever crossed before?
I don't know if we have or not, to be honest.
If I took my hat off, you'd have a better idea.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We were close.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. It's the hat thing. Yeah. How are you?
Doing great, man. Pleasure to meet you. First off, congratulations and thanks for coming on with us.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Long overdue, man. Goodness gracious. I don't know what took everybody so freaking long to figure that out, but congrats and well deserved, man.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with the curveball right out of the chute. Just your son. Like, how cool is that? Like, I get excited to see my 10-year-old boy get a hit. Like, what's it like to have your son in the big leagues getting hits?
Exactly like that. That's exactly what it feels like. From the day you watch him start playing the game, that's what you envision, because that's what they envision, and being blessed that he was able to be in the clubhouse and see all these great players. And now to be on the field, that's what every parent's hope is, for their kid to be successful and happy. And, it's great to have the conversations, even though I don't understand the game in his era as much as he explains to me, though.
What was your reaction when you got the phone call and, hey, you've been elected to the Hall of Fame in 2025? I mean, I'm sure you've answered this question a bunch of times, but if you could humor us and take us through what you went through that day.
Well, this was a very tough. This was tough to wait for. Your 10th and final time, and you're really going out there. You don't know. You just never know what it is. Percentages. People are always saying, "Oh, you should be in. You're only 5." But I don't think people realize that voters come and go throughout the process, and so you may not have the same voters every year voting for you. So you go out there and. We were going through the whole day, and then, about the hour before they were supposedly supposed to call, they call about an hour before everybody's they know. So about 5:00 is when they're supposed to call you. Yeah. And I mean, from about 4:45 to 5:00, it was days in between. I was very emotional, very just, it was very difficult. And so, when that phone call came and it was John and it says Hall of Fame, all that the joy and happiness and pressure and anxiety, it just fell on the floor. Anybody that goes through that and is elected, it's just the most unreal feeling to know that you're in a very small group and for me, coming from a very small town, coming from, a state that didn't have a Hall of Fame baseball player in it, Division III, all these things, that meant a lot. I felt like that, I was carrying a lot in that moment. And, it was great that I had friends and my wife and family around that was very supportive and knew what I was going through that day.
Did you shed a tear? Because I'm having trouble. One. I'm having trouble picturing Billy Wagner with shedding a tear.
Oh, I'm a big crybaby. I am a huge crybaby. I think every time I think about it, it brings that emotion back, because it was such a big moment for not just myself, but my family, my state, the precedence of perseverance going through, the weight of 10 years, but your career, and for it to get to a point where, you really get to see there's possible of having that cherry on top, it was very emotional. I was very emotional when I started thinking about my kids and when I think about my wife and the sacrifices that we all go through. But this was very tough because there's so many people that influenced me to get to where I'm at and help me. And I mean, you start thinking the rush of memories of your teammates and the plays and the conversations throughout the years, your coaches that you leaned on. I think there's just so much that gets brought up into your memory that when you get to that point, and it's just overwhelming, and it was very overwhelming that day for me.
You know all these facts already, but I want to make sure our audience understands a few things about Billy Wagner. First of all, you're going in a all-time classic class with Ichiro and CC Sabathia. Do you know either one of those guys very well?
I do. I mean, we've got to spend a little bit of time together, and we've had a couple dinners, and it is neat to get to know those guys outside of just competing against them. So, it's you don't realize how much you have in common, even with Ichiro, who you would think, it's from, Japan and things. But, me and Ichiro had known each other since 98. I faced him in 98 when we went over in the U.S., when we played in the international all-star game. Japanese American teams go over and compete against each other, and so I faced him before he got to the States, and I already knew what a super athlete he was. But now getting to meet him and his wife, and and CC and his wife, I mean, you just realize that we all went through that same gauntlet and the emotions. But I tell you, when you see what goes on with Ichiro on a daily basis, with how much press, I mean, I'm very blessed to get where I'm at, but I don't know if I'd want to go through what he has to go through on a daily basis.
You guys, you and Ichiro have some other things in common too, like size-wise, unusual for a couple of Hall of Famers who aren't big, strapping lads to go as far as you guys did. The induction's coming up July 27th in Cooperstown, and that's going to be an awesome day. But I mean, you come in at about what, 5'10" or so?
Yeah, 5'10".
You're strong, man. So it's not the height that matters, but it's how you throw, which was unbelievable. Billy Wagner, for fans who don't understand this, was the toughest pitcher to hit among all pitchers in Major League Baseball who had thrown at least 900 innings. The batting average against Billy Wagner, 187. You just don't get hits against Billy Wagner. He just rears back and throws it past you. Most of the time, you don't even touch the ball, from my memory with your time with the Braves. And this is a guy that, and I'm interested to hear the story. I'm sure you've told this many times, Billy, but when you were a kid, you broke your arm. You broke your right arm. And with that, you became a left-handed pitcher. Now, how does a child go from being right-handed and a broken arm to a lefty that's in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Well, obviously, the good Lord above has, way bigger plans than anything I could draw up. So, I think at the age of about 5 or 6 years old, I wanted to play. My love was football. I wanted to play football. And so my uncles played football. My cousins played football. And so I'm out in the front yard with a friend across the street named Chip Anderson, and we're playing. And we got a little hat. We're throwing it around, and he falls on my arm and breaks my arm. And so being a resilient kid who wants to keep playing, I put a cast on and I'm playing left-handed. I don't see a big deal out of that. I'm sure nobody else does either, because I was very undersized for a long time. And then when I get to, I think it was about a year later or so, I'm out on the monkey bars, break my right arm again. And so it just stuck that I was, left-handed. But it's one of those things. I can't do anything left-handed except throw a ball. I can't eat. I can't write. I can't, any of those things. So it's pretty unique. But I think what the story is just the resilience and the unknowing of what lied ahead, and just wanting to be resilient and play and do whatever it took to fit in with everybody. You just find those guys out. I mean, there are so many guys who do. I mean, Darryl Kyle was a right-handed pitcher, but he was a natural lefty. There's so many guys that have those traits. It's just, for me, I mean, that was that unforeseen blessing that, you went through and nobody could see coming, but obviously it paid off. But, I hold that to be like that, when people are not sure, why certain things happen, for me, you break your right arm and become a left-handed Hall of Famer. And now you kind of become a little bit more of a role model for kids that, and for me in Southwest Virginia, have somebody to kind of go, hey, this stuff is possible. So, one door shuts and a window opens kind of thing.
How's your right-handed throw? You still got something in the tank with righty?
Well, I do play catch right-handed, and I get kids watching me go, what? Did I just see that? Because I can't throw as well, but I mean, it's not like it's foreign. And so it is funny when I watch them play catch, and they're like, something was different there, but they end up just kind of shaking their head. But yeah, I tell you, the best story I ever had about being that whole scenario was I was in Philly, and Kenny Rogers came out, and I was standing by the cage, and he started going, hey, I know, because Kenny was funny. He's like, I know something I can do better. And he goes, I can throw better right-handed than you can. I was like, oh, really? Okay. And we're standing at the cage. And so in Philly, down the left field line is the stands reach out there. Well, he goes, he throws the ball right-handed. I go, man, that's really good. That's really good. He goes, I bet you can't throw. And I threw it in the seats, and kind of looked at me like, what? And I said, well, I'm natural right-handed. And he was like, what? But yeah. So, but during the season when I was with the Astros and Darryl Kyle was with us, it wasn't unusual for him to flip me his glove and I'd flip him mine, and we would shag opposite-handed. And it was pretty neat because Darryl Kyle could really throw left-handed really, really well. It was kind of, I'm sitting here because everybody made a big deal out of me, but I'm going, did y'all know Darryl Kyle could do this? I'm like, man, this is pretty interesting. So, there's guys that do that, but, I was blessed with an unbelievable gift, but you wouldn't have seen that coming from the age 5 to really up through high school.
So, Billy, you and Whitey Ford, I mean, that's pretty elite company to get in the Hall of Fame, not be the, of course, the scouts like all the pitchers to be 6'6" and throwing the ball 170 miles an hour. Of course, you could throw 170. Do you remember your 400th save very well?
I definitely do, and it had nothing to do with my 400th actual save. But that night was, it was a unique night getting that 400, and how I did it was even more unusual with punching out 3. But the night I got it, I was driving home, and there's a part where there's a light that's higher than another one. And so when you're driving, you look past that light. Well, I drove through a red light. This cop flies in. He was off duty, calls another cop. They pull me and my wife and my 4 kids and this guy is just livid. He is wearing me out. And I'm like, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. I apologize. When this other cop walks up and he goes, hey, I just saw you get your 400 save. And this cop looks, he's just like baffled, like, what? And the cop's going, he's been drinking, he's been driving, you could tell it. And I'm like, I just walked out of, and so this guy is just right. Coach, the cop looks at me and says, hey, Mr. Wagner, just get in your car, go home, I'll take care of this. But that was the last thing. That was the memory of my 400 save. It wasn't anything to do. I mean, I did get the only thing that I do remember is getting to face Brandon Inge and stuff like that, which was a Virginia guy at the time. So, but that was the funny part that stuck out to me.
Well, you wouldn't know this, but one of the great honors of my entire broadcasting career was I got to call that ninth inning.
Cool.
And in fact, I think Abe may have those bang, bang, bang strikeouts queued up somewhere. Abe, do you have that?
Braves have won 14 of their last 15 games here at Turner Field. Wagner ready. Rears back, delivers. Swing and a miss, strike three. Smoked him with a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. Billy Wagner gets to 400 in style. 3 straight punch-outs. And he saved his best fastball for the last one. Hugs all around for Wagner, McCann, Chipper, David Ross coming out there. The Braves are celebrating. They end a little 3-game losing streak with a very nice win over the Tigers in the opener tonight. The final score here at Turner Field, Braves 3, Tigers 1.
Austin Jackson was the last.
Yeah, Austin Jackson was last because I think it was Inch, and then it was what was it? The kid who I got out second. We played together in Houston. We came up a little bit. He was a little later than me, but we played together in Houston. He was going to be our shortstop and stuff. So yeah, it was. I mean, that whole time in 2010 was so unique because I'd announced to Bobby that I was going to retire, and Bobby just come out and just told everybody, because I told Bobby in confidence saying, hey, listen, I'm going to retire. Just don't say anything. I don't want to make a big deal. Let's just, and he's like, well, you're, and this is like the day before any game had started, because I was like, I want to say this before anything happens, because whether I have a great year or a bad year, I don't want that to be like, oh, well, he just, whatever. What I wanted to do was just go out and just say, hey, I'm done. This is what it is. And Bobby announces it. Some guys come over and they're going, hey, and I'm like, yeah, I'm telling them, yeah, it's time to be home and stuff like that. But, thank God, you can go out on a high note. But, once again, you have a high note when you have great teammates and a great team behind you. And I mean, what an awesome bullpen, Peter Moylan, and shoot, you got to watch Craig Kimball break into the game. So, I mean, Johnny Vendors, I mean, you had some guys that were pretty special on that team that you got to watch. I mean, Kimball's going to be in the Hall of Fame next. You played with Chipper Jones. I mean, Bobby Cox. I mean, there were just so many things about that year that were magical, but, that was my childhood team anyway. So that was always a plus for me.
Billy, you just came into that game absolutely throwing bees. I mean, they were just bullets flying by everybody. Your last pitch to nail down that 400 save was your hardest pitch of that appearance. You threw it in the upper 90s. I mean, it was just you must have had a tremendous amount of adrenaline coursing through your veins at that point.
Yeah, the good thing about being a closer is that when it is a save opportunity, it's already built in, and so the magic of that game. And when and it's like I teach my kids today that when you put yourself ahead of the game, you're probably going to fail. And so I put the win ahead of all the things that I could do. So that takes the pressure off what I'm trying to actually do, and it's just that luxury of going out there and, making pitches. Because I guarantee if I would have went out there going, hey, I've got to do this and I've got to make these, I'd have had bases loaded. It'd have been chaos. So I through experience thinking, hey, just do what you got to do. Get outs, throw strikes. There was not a time I walked out and said, hey, I'm going to throw really hard today, or I'm going to do this a day. It just was a blessing and a gift from God that I was able to do these things. So what I wanted to do was make sure that I didn't overblow myself by sitting there going, oh my gosh, hey, this is 406. Of course I knew what it was. I mean, my kids have been telling me all day. So, I mean, you're like, hey, don't blow this one, Dad. It's a big one right here. But, it's a special moment. It was, it's funny. I sit here and I'm looking at the wall when I got where Bobby Cox signed the scorecard for me on my phone, and it's just those are the memories you take back and the blessings and stuff like that. And you really cherish the people that are around you that really enjoyed what you did, and so that moment sticks out when all the guys are celebrating. So it was good.
So how do you see if you can tell us which is more important to you or excites you more? But I know you wanted to go in the Hall of Fame as an Astro, and you're going to get that. And I don't know how bad you wanted your number to be retired by the Astros, but they're going to do it, and I'm sure that is a tremendous honor. I mean, how much does that do for you personally compared to just the actual fact that you're going to be going into the National Baseball Hall of Fame later this summer?
Well, I think when a team honors any player, it's just they think a lot of you, and it's hard to get that. I think Reed Ryan set the precedence of really you had to be a Hall of Famer to get into that. So it's a very elite group, and you look at three guys like Bagwell and Biggio and myself, who played together in that era to be on that board. The Astros, being able to represent the Astros, come in as from an organization that picked you. You spent 9-10 years. Then, not on top of that, they draft your son. There's a lot of pride. 3 of my 4 kids are Houstonians, so it was only fitting. For them to retire my jersey is it's kind of leaves me speechless, because it's something that I don't think anybody looks for that to happen. I think when you get drafted, your high school usually retires your jersey and things like that. They do things, but this is like that totally different thing. I mean, it's funny because Cape Cod wanted to retire my jersey up in that I played for in Brewster. All of a sudden, there's a lot of things that go on, but that team, when you walk into the stadium, your name's going to be on that board forever. It's that's a lasting impression, and it's just I think I'll have a harder time describing the feelings of that when I go out there and see that. But I don't think it's something you can really understand until that real moment.
Yeah, I can't imagine, actually.
No.
That would be mind blowing. So, but richly deserved by you. Billy, I'm sure you don't remember this conversation you and I had when you were in Atlanta, and you're such an old school guy. I mean, probably as old school as anybody I've encountered in the big leagues. And we were talking about your kids and how you go home and you throw batting practice to your kids and all that. And you told me that one day one of your boys got a hold of one pretty good, and I can't remember if he flipped his bat or if he just sort of pimped his way around the bases, but he was not. You were not happy with the way he was celebrating his big knock. And if I recall correctly, I believe that when he stepped back in the box, that you made sure that he wasn't comfortable in there, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, I did. Listen, and it's funny because today's era is a little different and stuff. And being a high school coach, I've had to adjust quite a bit. But I'm all about having fun. I am. I love it. And the most fun I have is when you win. There's nothing better than having fun when you win. And there's moments, and there's a joy that you got to have when you're out there because of so much pressure that's on you. I think what stands out the reference that you were making was the kid out in Colorado who flipped the bat out almost threw it out to the mound from Colorado. I can't even fathom. I mean, the hair on the back of my neck, just absolutely. I can't even imagine that kid's next at bat. If I would have been pitching, and it's not that the guy hit the home run. It's the understanding you're paid to do that. You're paid to do these things. I get it. You're in spring training. I tell you, I gave up a lot of home runs. I gave up a lot of big home runs. I struck out a lot of people, but there was not one time where I thought that it was justified to go out there and really make a spectacle about myself. And that's the old school. And that came from my grandfather, who, when I was in high school, I scored a touchdown and I high stepped into the end zone. He met me in the end zone to let me know that. The very first time I got a save against the Atlanta Braves, I pumped my fist at the end and called home, and he told me, he goes, you're not doing anything you weren't supposed to do. You haven't got more saves than Lee Smith, and you don't have more strikeouts than Noah Ryan. You should just do your job and do it and move on. And that was just how I was brought up. But I mean, I do like the excitement. I do like the energy. I couldn't do that. I could not force myself to be excited about doing something I was supposed to do. But now that I'm over it and I'm out of the game now, watching these kids and enjoying it, I like it. I think it's hard to understand when you're losing and you hit a double. There's 15 different signs for how you got a double, or staring a guy down after there's just the precedents are different. And I mean, granted, I am way old school, and my son tells me that constantly, that I don't understand the new era, and I have no idea. I can't imagine having to throw the ball in the strike zone that these kids have today and act like I've done something different when it would be very difficult to pitch in today's game for me.
I got to ask you, and Tyler, I want him to chime in too, because Tyler has made a great name for himself as a catcher in the big leagues by being the best pitch framer that any team has. And now they've just announced that they're going with the automatic balls and strikes computer robot thing. And they're starting that in spring training. And I'm not sure they're going to implement it during the course of the 2025 season, but probably by 2026 it's going to come in. But I want to get the thoughts from both of you guys on the robots calling the balls and strikes and not a man.
Well, I got a question for Brandon. How about this? I think umpires already know what a strike is before while that ball's on the way. I think they're that good at the big league level. I think that a ball off at a guy throwing 98 is very difficult to call, at times to get right every single time with the amazing movement. But a great receiver, like that's the good part about the game. How do you feel about that?
I'm not excited about it, and I thank God every day that I played when I played, because I wouldn't be able to survive. Like, I had one skill set, basically. I hit really well in the minors. Big leagues didn't really translate as well, and then I found this skill and really honed in on it and became really, really good at it. So if I had to play tomorrow, I think my career would be over 2 days from now, because that's the only real asset I brought to a team. Other occasional homer here and there. Hit by pitch, I was good at that too. But yeah, I don't like it. It's literally, like, for me, it's the biggest stat on the back of my card, and that's about to be eliminated, which is scary.
Yeah. Well, and I think, as good as pitchers are, and I think hitting will always be hard. Now you've made it, 23 inches across, and you have to really, your stuff has to be tunneled so well now, and electric, and it really is not the velocity that ever dictates that. It's just crazy movement and late. But now it's just when you're going out there and you're pitching, I don't know how you evaluate yourself, because you really are throwing for them to put the ball in play. That is the goal. It's always been the goal from the beginning, but now it's even more. And you're throwing. You got guys, Chapman and guys like that, throwing 105, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter how hard a guy throws anymore, because these guys will time it up. It's truly the movement. I've heard rumors of moving the mound back to 62 feet, and they were going, well, that will help the hitter. So I'm like, no, it will not. 62 feet gives me more movement time. Oh my God. I'm like that. Now it'll be even harder, and the velocity will not change. Now you have more movement. But, I like that, I know Eric Gray created this whole thing when he was in the playoffs against the Braves, and he was on his way out. But, the debate, the uniqueness of the game is the argument of strike and ball and high and low and things like that. And if you have a really good catcher who has framing ability, and I like catcher that was a catcher. If he was a hitter, most of the time he wasn't a very good catcher. Yeah. He took that too personal. And if you found a guy that
you would have loved me then.
So and listen, I'm not knocking any of my catchers, because they did, but I love the guy who was about his behind the plate, because that's what affected me, of course. But I think that a guy that can take a ball, the framing things that they do nowadays. taking a ball and taking it from below to into the strike zone is an art. But I like the evolution of the game. I do like the bases. I like the clock. I don't worry about those things, but I do think that, the balls and strikes, it's, I mean, when you can challenge every pitch, when you can challenge those things, I mean, you're just a BP thrower. Eventually you're just a BP thrower.
I think pitchers are going to be surprised how often they get a pitch backdoor two seam called off the plate for them. And I think batters are going to be shocked how far the up and in corner is versus the bottom and away. And it doesn't matter how it looks. You can throw a cement mixer front door, catcher set up away, you catch it over here, strike. Like, I think both sides are going to be shocked if they ever go fully automated. It's going to be shocking to everyone.
Yeah, and maybe that levels it out, evens it out a little bit. But I had nothing. I had no problems with the way it was. I think a lot of these rules have will have an effect on the next generation of who we think are Hall of Famers. The starter. How do you tell a starter who gets 150 wins that you're a Hall of Famer? Well, that's the era you're in, and you can't really. I've had dinner with Goose. I know Goose is, the way I got to close games is completely different than how he closed games, and he would tell me to my face, and I'll laugh because I love him. I enjoy it. Oh, if I only had to throw one inning, I don't know if I'd give up a hit. I'd probably strike out everybody. And you're probably right. And I'm good with that. I have no problem with that. But I do. How do you tell the guy like a Maddox and guys like that who went out there and won 300 plus games, that a guy who wins 150, is more how do you award a guy, a Cy Young when they only get 4 innings? Where does that come anymore? I mean, do your relievers start getting the Cy Youngs? The value of the game has changed a little bit, and I know there is positive parts to it, but and relievers are going to get more precedence, but there's our being from the old school, Larry Durker was about, and even Terry Collins, starters go as long as you can, and if you get in trouble, then that's when your relievers come. For me, I wasn't a guy who was a starter, so being a failed starter, it was just the luxury of having guys in front of me that were more apt to be a starter than a guy like me. So I don't know. I'm interested at a lot of these things and how it's going to go, but I mean, once you open Pandora's box, you can't close that. It's not like you can go, all right, guys, we're not going to do this strike zone anymore. We're going to let it open up. Now umpires are going to be going crazy. I mean, hitters and pitchers won't know anything. And so we've opened that box, and I don't think you can close it again.
Well, guys, we're not too far away from the end of our discussion and time today, so we're going to flip the switch here for a second and kind of go in a different direction and change up the subject a little bit. You got a son playing in the big leagues. What's his scouting report? How do you assess what he does on the field?
Oh, I'm not even about to say that. That's I want him to be successful. I ain't telling anybody how I would pitch. I throw balls right down the middle to him. That's how I do it. I would hang sliders and I think what I really appreciate about watching my son is he reminds me of that throwback Paul Molitor, Wade Boggs. He's I love the quality of his at bats. Those are the things we preached because he was undersized coming up, and so we weren't up there going, "Hey, you need to let it eat a little bit." I like how he navigates his at bats and works AB. So, I like that old school game about him.
Tyler, what do you got for Billy?
I think Will's great at that. He manages the strike zone extremely well. Competitive at bats. I've watched all of his bats. I remember when he first came up, he went 3 for 4 or something crazy, and then backed it up with a 2 for 3. That was awesome to see that. But he commanded the strike zone. You could tell he was disciplined. He's been into it. He's been taught the right way. He's not trying to back leg, go deep, lift and launch. My question for you don't have to name names, but I know a lot of guys you played with. some of them were pranksters. You got it. Your best prank from your career.
Well, I mean, I mean, Jay Powell was pretty good. Jay Powell, oh gosh, Jay Powell, Xavier Hernandez was good. Doug Dre, the pranksters back in the day were, Tim Hudson. Tim Hudson was really good.
He's one of the best.
Yes, Huddy was really good at that. But you also had guys like Josh Beckett and Baratek who acted like he didn't know shit, but he actually could pull this off. Papelbon, these guys, Papelbon and Ortiz could really do some stuff. They would work on each other. So, and Henske could get a little shady with some pranks too. So, yeah. So there were some super guys that were like that. I was not one of them. I can't keep a straight face. So I'm the guy they pulled the prank on because I could never keep a straight face. I was all excited about seeing the reaction. So then nobody would ever tell me anything like, hey, listen, we're going to get this guy. They just said, don't tell him because he will give it away. So.
Hey, one more for you. Now that, you're retired, you're in the Hall of Fame now. Favorite catcher? You're allowed to say it now. When they ask you that when you're playing, you have to say whoever your catcher is.
What? Well, I'll tell you right now, it was not just one. I would hate to even sit there and say it was just this guy, but Brad Ausmus was the very first time Brad Ausmus called me. I absolutely hated it. Looked like he looked so little. He's trying to catch me real time. I was like, holy God, I'm throwing for an area and you're trying to hit a dot. So we didn't mesh early. And then he left and came back. And all of a sudden he was the greatest catcher I've ever had. So him, Veritek, Todd Pratt by far. Todd Pratt was one of my favorite because he was all about Tony Eusebio, Randy Knorr, Brian McCann. I think guys that were really about the pitchers were the guys that, of course, I gravitated to. I love that guy. I was like, oh, yeah, let's you and me. And when they made it about me and my pitching staff and stuff like that, then I was all about it. So I'm always like, hey, yeah, I want that guy to catch. And so those were the priceless guys for me.
Yeah.
Bill, you had a really good long career, and I want to ask you, what was the craziest thing that you ever saw, including minor leagues and major leagues? Whether it's a player doing something crazy, whether you did something crazy, what's the wildest thing that comes to your mind when you think back over the years and all the things that you saw along the way?
Man, I've seen guys climbing in the stands. Chasing stands, chasing fans. I saw Doug Brocail go after a fan because they were yelling at me when I was warming up and they were talking about my family, and he's climbing up in the stands after. I think just, like Kerry Woods, the outing Kerry Woods had against the Astros, he punches out 20 guys, and he could have, it was the most unreal thing I've ever seen in that situation. I think, throwing a no-hitter in Yankee Stadium, all the reporters telling us that you can't throw a no-hitter in Yankee Stadium because of the ghost of Yankee Stadium. Just hearing the old things of past, and the uniqueness of the stadiums of like Wrigley and stuff like that. Standing on Detroit's old field, Tiger Stadium, and I'm on the mound, and home plate is about 3 feet to the right instead of Lakeshore. There were just so many unique things. I'm sure, gosh, I feel old now. I can't remember anything about what the uniqueness, but there were so many unique players. But just, I think the stadiums and some of the games and that being a part of, 99 being in the All-Star game and seeing 100 of the greatest players of generations walk out there, was probably the highlight. And Yankee Stadium All-Star game, seeing all these unique players, it stands out to me.
Do you have any regrets?
Oh, well, of course, there's plenty, but I think the biggest regret is just not winning a championship. It's so hard, and you need that team to be able to do it. But it was really just, just getting, having the opportunities and not being able to get it. I think 98 was probably what I would have thought was the greatest opportunity. 98, possibly 06. And in 98, San Diego ended up beating us to go to the World Series. And then, that was a year we had Randy Johnson, probably the best pitching staff I'd ever been a part of in 98. And then I think in 06 with the Mets having that, we had names upon names. And then Pedro got hurt, El Duque got hurt, Juaner Sanchez gets hurt. All of a sudden, within a 2-week period, we went from favorites to hoping we would, get to the next round. And so, offensively, I don't know if I've been on a team that had as much offensive firepower as the 06 Mets, but my gosh, just some of the guys that, that was two teams that I thought, I look back and I'm like, man, that would have been nice to really see that in the World Series. But, not winning a championship always is the main goal. So not being able to win that is something that I regret.
Makes perfect sense. Billy, we got to thank you so much. Be no regrets by anybody when we watch you go into that National Baseball Hall of Fame this summer. That's going to be a glorious day for anybody who's ever met you and knows anything about you as a person, as well as a baseball, pitcher. But richly deserved. And I'm going to be watching your son now too. I didn't realize that it was your son that made the majors. So Tyler told me this morning. And so I got a new player to root for. So
well,
I'll be doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Tyler, it was great to meet you, man. What a fan. I've always, I'm a terrible name guy, but once I saw you, I was like, yeah, I know exactly who that is. So no, listen, I'm a big fan of catchers. I mean, if you ever watched me coach in high school, catchers are the guys who so I coddle them like no tomorrow, because I do know how difficult and how good they made me. So I'm like, if I want to be my pitchers to be good, I need my catchers to be great. So
absolutely, no. You would have loved throwing to me, and I would have loved catching you, because again, the back of my baseball card was receiving and calling a game. It wasn't homers and batting average, and I realized that early on. And
that's important.
I don't know any pitchers that didn't really like throwing to me. Just preparation, everything else. That's such a big part of it.
Don't make me think. That's what awesome. If I have to think, I'm only going to screw this up. And so my catcher would just go, hey, I'll do all the heavy lifting. You just throw it this way. So, no, it's great to meet you. And, Jim, it's always, I appreciate you inviting me on. And hopefully I'll see you around.
Yes, I hope you do. And hopefully we'll catch up again later this summer after you've gone through the whole Hall of Fame thing and find out how it went for you, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. It sounds like playing.
That sounds great, Billy. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Hey, thanks again. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Billy. Yes, congrats, man.
Yep. See you guys.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us for today's episode of Fans First, a sports podcast. We ask you to please don't forget to follow me on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And please subscribe to our Fans First YouTube channel. We would really appreciate it. If you like our Fans First content, you can help us by making sure you're subscribed to all of our social networks. Don't forget about our Fans First website. It's fansfirstpodcast.com. To be included as a guest on an episode, send your voicemail or your video file or even a written memo to me, Jim, at fansfirstpodcast.com. Please keep your submissions not too long. We give you a little latitude, but not too much. We want you to be part of the show, and we look forward to hearing from you. We're so glad you joined us for today's episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon on Fans First, a sports podcast.
Stay tuned, stay passionate, and keep celebrating the sport you love. Visit us at fansfirstpodcast.com to explore more. Sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive updates and follow the podcast on social media to join our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Your voice matters to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. See you next time